Monday, the 31st of December, 2001. And that's the last day I had a real job. That is the day that I wheel spun out of the civil service car park. And 23 years later, I've still got that reminder on my desk not to mess it up. Because if I do, that's where I'm heading again. I'm heading back to a job I hated and that I never want to return to ever again.
Today, we have John Lamerton on the We Built This Business podcast, talking about big idea ventures. John was a hustler, a grinder. He's built multiple businesses, he's exited businesses, and he now helps businesses grow through his 1% Club and through his award-winning books. John is a great guy. Hear how one day he knew he got it all wrong. What he did will shock most people. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Today, I'm pleased to have John Lamerton on the We Built This Business podcast, talking about big idea ventures. John, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me here, Daniel. Really appreciate it.
John, so the listeners don't know, but this is actually our third attempt at recording this episode, isn't it?
I don't know what we've done in a previous life, but the gods were conspiring against us, weren't they?
So the first time my sound stopped working, the second time we had the thunderstorm to end all thunderstorms, and it killed not only our internet, but also our power. So this is third time lucky, I guess, John.
It is. I mean, barring a zombie apocalypse or a new pandemic that breaks out in the next hour, I think we should be good to go.
Fantastic. Let's start, John, by talking about yourself. So what are you currently up to? What's Big Idea Ventures all about?
Cool. So Big Idea Ventures is a vehicle that I put together about 8 years ago now to be the next step in my journey. So my business partner, Jason, and I, we'd been involved in about 60 small businesses over the past couple of decades. And we'd reached a point whereby we'd exited the day-to-day running of our main business. We almost sold the business. That sale fell through and we ended up keeping the golden goose anyway. But we got to the point whereby we were kind of early 40s at that time, not ready to just hit the golf course. So we said, what shall we do? I wanted to give back. I wanted to help the next generation of entrepreneurs to avoid some of the mistakes I'd made, to learn some of the stuff that I'd picked up over the preceding 20 odd years. So it very much started around my kitchen table. That was the whole ethos. We thought of nothing other than, I know of 6 people I can help. Right, let's cobble them together. Once a month, they'll meet around my kitchen table. I'll give them some homework. I'll give them a book to read. And I'll just coach them. I'll just help them to avoid the mistakes that I did. And as is so often the case with business, it just snowballed a little bit from there because I kept saying yes to things. So can I bring a friend along next month? Yeah, of course you can. Until suddenly we reached the tipping point of the 13th person in my kitchen. And the 13 was a very, very important number because I only had 12 seats. So the first month that 13 people turned up, well, we're standing room only now. And it really snowballed from there to be, well, okay, we can do 12, 13 at a push. Let's hire a venue and let's do a proper event. Well, actually, no, we need to put some real plans behind this. And I remember about 8 months after starting it, Jason and I were driving up to a local meeting here. And I said to Jason, it's great we've helped these 12 people over the last 8 months, but I want to help 12,000 people. How could we do that? I said, well, I want to write a book. And one of my mentors had said to me years ago, you should write a book, John. You've got so many stories. You know, my entrepreneurial journey is a real roller coaster. It's very, very high highs and very low lows. And I know most entrepreneurs listening to this will be, yep, that's the standard entrepreneurial journey. So it was always at the back of my mind, I could write a book. I said, Jason, let's launch a podcast. This would have been 2016, which was a very interesting time. So that was the first thing we decided to do was, let's start with the podcast. Then we'll write a book off the back of the podcast. We went.
And that was that at this point that you helped 12 people, or was this before you'd helped 12 people?
Yeah, so we'd helped the 12. We said, look, we've got some good frameworks here. a lot of the 12 people had the same issues, the same challenges. Marketing was a big one. They weren't doing any marketing. They weren't marketers of their businesses. They were basically self-employed people who knew how to do the role. They knew how to do the job, but they didn't know how to fill their diary. They didn't know how to position themselves. They didn't know how to elevate their branding, anything like that. So yeah, at that point we said, right, let's turn what we've been talking about every month into, originally we said a weekly podcast. And the reason I say it was 2016 is because we didn't appreciate at the time, because I was massively into my podcast. I had been for several years. So I assumed that everyone else was massively into podcasts too. And it's very, very difficult now to appreciate a time when people weren't. Thank you, Chewy. That's Chewy, my cockapoo. The joys of working from home. So yeah, we went networking, Jason and I, in Plymouth, and we announced ourselves as podcasters. We had business cards built up. We are podcasters, not business coaches, not mentors, nothing like that, not an author or anything like that, just podcasters. And then the conversations we had along the lines of, what's a podcast then? Can I get that on my phone? Oh, is that a bit like radio then? Is that like hospital radio? Oh, no. So we spent more time explaining what a podcast was than actually helping people. So we thought we would just say, hey, we've got a podcast, and people would say, much as they would nowadays, cool, what's it called? I'll subscribe to it. Instead, we were having to bring people onto the platform and educate people in what podcasting is before we could actually convince them to listen to our podcast. So we quickly abandoned that and went straight with, we still did the podcast, and those who were into podcasting subscribed. I think we've done over 140 episodes. We abandoned weekly very quickly because it was too much hard work. I know you know how that feels. So we went monthly, and then I focused on writing a book. I said, look, what we'll do, we'll chat on the podcast, and then what we'll do, this is really clever, we'll get the podcast transcribed. That's chapter 1. Next week's podcast, chapter 2. Brilliant. Danny, have you ever looked at the transcriptions of your podcasts?
I have, and they're quite terrifying sometimes.
They are. They don't read like a perfectly written book, do they?
Absolutely not, no.
So I went through the transcript. I'll give it a light edit. That's chapter 1. And there's crosstalk. There's indecipherable bits. I just get into the flow of the narrative of what I want to say, and then Jason will interrupt me, and I'm like, no. And then there's jokes, and there's laughter, and there's coughing fits. And it was just terrible. It was worse in terms of turning it into a polished book than it would have been just starting with a blank page and a blinking cursor. Yeah.
And so how did you go from that to obviously publishing the book? So I'm assuming you must have just completely rewritten it.
Yeah, it was very much so. As I said, I started off, we're going to get the transcripts, light edit, that'll be the book. After a few weeks of that, we realised that was not working, and it needed to be that blank canvas. So the biggest mistake I made with the first book was that I didn't really plan it in advance. I just thought, because I planned this to be my autobiography, this wasn't ever really intended to be anything other than me telling my story of when I started my business in 2000 up to 2017 when I published the book. That was my thoughts. Just, right, this is 17 years of everything I know, vomit on a page. This is my narrative. So we'll start at the beginning, we'll end at the end. I don't need to plan it out. And that was the biggest mistake I made, because I know now, and I'm just in the process of writing my 5th book now, that you've got to plan it. You've got to know what the structure looks like. And because readers need to understand the narrative. I think the problem is maybe I grew up loving my favourite movie of all time, Pulp Fiction, which is all over the place in terms of a narrative. I think the opening scene is pretty much the end. It's just before the end. And then the end scene is just before the beginning. And, someone dies in the second scene, but they're in the rest of the movie. And it's completely out of order. And I love it. If you read a book like that, it's terrible when someone...
That's probably how an entrepreneur's mind works in a way, though. You kind of...
It's a little bit, yeah.
You focus at the end in mind before you've even got the rest of everything in place.
Yeah. We jump out of the airplane, and then we put our parachute on and assemble the parachute on the way out the plane, don't we?
Yeah. So how long did it take you to write that book?
Less time than it should have done, because the second big mistake I made with that book was setting a public deadline. So when I started writing the book, I said publicly, this book is coming out on the 13th of July, 2017. And I reverse engineered everything to make that happen. So in total, I probably spent 6 months writing. And I know now I allow myself at least a year, and sometimes longer. Evergreen Assets, my third book, took me 18 months. And
wow.
Even then, that was a little bit of pressure, because I'd told people it was coming out in 2021. And that came out at the end of November 2021. So it was a little bit rushed. But yeah, I did put myself under pressure, which meant I didn't enjoy the process of writing the book. I'm very proud of that book, and I've gone back and sort of done a light edit on it since. But I'm very proud of that book. But oh my God, the pressure it put me under. And I took my eye off running the main business at the time. So it was like, okay, things would happen in the business that I didn't know about until after I published the book, because no one was telling me, because I was just locked away in this office, hammering at a keyboard.
So, Big Idea Ventures, what was it set up for? More, so you wanted to help 12,000 people. You wanted to help them grow your business. What did you want to achieve for these 12,000?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was very much, we will help small businesses to grow their business. That's what I've always done. I've always started, acquired businesses, and just growth has almost always been my natural byproduct, because I'm a marketer at heart. So the minute I speak to a business owner and they tell me what their business is, in my brain, I almost automatically go, what could it be? Oh, if you tapped into this market, and if you added this revenue stream, and you could probably treble your turnover in the next 18 months. And I look at the order book and it's like, I could fill that order book. And I just see potential everywhere. So it did start off as very vague. And again, those first few episodes of the podcast, it was very much, if you've got a business, any size, and you've got any ambition whatsoever, we'll help you grow your business. Over time, that evolved, and we realized how we truly help people. And we discovered this thing, which is like, it's like a pendulum. So we've got ambition at one end, we've got lifestyle at the other. So we worked, because a lot of the things that I wrote about in Big Ideas for Small Businesses was this dilemma I had between, I am a very, very ambitious person. I've got a lot of drive. I want to see how far I can grow things and how big I can take them. When I first started my business, I got to 6 figures very quickly. And just immediately, even though I'd been previously on a salary of like 15,000 a year, suddenly went, well, I now need to make £1 million a year. Why? I've no idea, other than, well, I've got to 100k a year really easily. So that's the next step. But I balanced that then with lifestyle. So I went down that road of just growth at all costs. I ended up burning out in my 20s, to the point where I was sat in a hospital with a very kind dermatologist saying, are you under any stress at all? Because I think you're on the verge of a nervous breakdown here. That was 25 years old.
So let's take it back a little bit. So when you were working, and you were working for 15,000 a year, what inspired you to then start that first business, and what was that business?
Yeah. So what inspired me was a complete hatred for the job I was in.
Right.
I used to be a civil servant, and when I first started my life as a civil servant, I worked within a role within the department that I really enjoyed. I had a lot of freedom. I had a lot of autonomy. I was out on the road every day. Every day was different. It was fantastic. And then in, I believe, the summer of, or the beginning of 2000, my role changed, and in true civil service fashion, they decided that I was no longer qualified to do the job that I'd been doing for the past 3 years.
Makes sense.
And that was now the pay grade above me that needed to do that job. So they paid me back 3 years of back pay. So I got temporarily promoted in reverse. They gave me 3 years of back pay, but then said, and you now need to work within a different department. You can't do this job anymore. So I was moved to a different department. I ended up being a basically glorified debt collector, which I hated with a passion. And I had to be in the office, 9 to 5, sat at your desk, in front of a computer, just calling people saying, you owe us money, when a lot of them didn't even owe the money. It was a horrible job. And I started my business in the second week of my onboarding training for this new role, because I knew after 2 weeks, I'm not going to be able to stick this out. This place is toxic. This place is horrible. The average lifespan of an employee in this department was 18 months. No one stayed longer than 18 months. In my previous role, it was forever. People that went in that department, 20 years later, they're still there. 18 months at this new department. So I knew it wasn't going to last. The business I started was being a .com millionaire. That was the business I decided to start because...
Was that the name of the business?
No, that was just what I was going to do. I was just going to become a .com millionaire. Because when I was out on the road, I would listen to the radio, and this was at the peak of the .com boom. So all over the radio, all over the news were these 20-something-year-old kids having ideas, no business plans, no profits, no plan to actually pay any of this investors' money back, but they would have ideas, and then people would go, that's a brilliant idea, here's $1 million. And I thought, I could do that. I've got ideas. And I had many, many ideas, stupid ideas. Most of my original forays into the internet marketing were get paid to schemes. So get paid to surf, get paid to read emails, get paid to click on banners. And it was a horrible, really, really spammy, almost just, it left a very vile taste in the mouth. But
so was it an internet marketing company you set up?
Yeah, that was the plan. So I decided, right, going to launch this internet marketing company. There's only 3 barriers to entry I've got here. Number 1, I've never run a company before. Number 2, I know nothing about marketing. And number 3, I don't even own a computer, let alone have access to the internet. So other than those 3 tiny barriers to me becoming an internet marketing millionaire, I've got ideas though, Dan. I've got ideas. So that's all it needs, isn't it?
Did you have any money?
No, I borrowed 100 quid from my bank's overdraft, and I borrowed my girlfriend's parents' computer, which had free serve, 56k dial-up. Kids, if you don't know what that is, just Google it.
We've actually interviewed Ajaz, who set up FreeServe.
Oh, wow. I think well, thank him then, because without him, this would not have happened.
So you got your FreeServe, which basically gives you access to the internet, which for people that, like you said, weren't aware of that sounds absolutely mad now. But you had to log on to a specific, almost platform to be able to access the internet.
So my girlfriend's parents would moan that they couldn't use the telephone at the same time that I was using the internet.
Yeah, no, I remember that well. My parents having a go at me. So you've got access to the internet. You know nothing about marketing. You've got no money. You don't know how to run a business. What do you do?
I do a lot of stuff. I put shoe leather in, and I just keep working harder and harder and harder. And I make a lot of mistakes. So I buy domain names, which, again, kids, you don't know you're born. How much does a domain name cost?
About £17, £18 at the moment for a year.
Yeah, I think I was paying 150 quid per domain name for my first few. Thinking that was the road to riches, because I've seen people who literally, they just buy a good sounding domain name and then hold on to it. And then someone says, I want that domain name. Here's a massive check. I blame Brent Hoberman for this. So Brent Hoberman, one of the co-founders of lastminute.com. So I remember the exact street I was in when I heard Brent Hoberman talking about something, and it was about online auctions going massive in the early 2000s. This was before eBay just dominated everything. And I went home that night and I thought, I've got an idea for a business here. So I went to register the domain name goinggoing.com. And I thought, that's just brilliant. That sounds great. Only to find that someone had bought it the day before.
No.
And that person was Brent Hoberman. So I just went, I've just had the same idea as Brent Hoberman, but I had it a day later than him. I was like, my God, I wonder if he was listening to the same radio show I was. And he obviously had direct access to the internet, whereas I needed to finish the day job, get home, drive around to the girlfriend's parents, ask them to just, if you could please hang up the phone so I can get on Freezer. That little delay cost me goinggoing.com, but it showed me that I was on the right tracks. It showed me that actually, yeah, there is something here. I picked up a book, the first book I bought that wasn't kind of, I don't know, the famous 5 or a Jack Reacher novel, was Internet Marketing for Dummies. If there was ever a book that was just made for me, this was it, because I was the dummy, knew nothing. And pretty much I started at page 1 and I just worked my way through. This is what you need to do to get a website. This is how you design a web page. This is how you get traffic. This is how you convert that traffic. You need to look at, SEO was very basic back in the days. We didn't have Google then. It was Alta Vista, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, again, FreeServe, all these
AOL.
small AOL. Oh, sorry, I forgot about AOL. They were the biggie in the day, weren't they? AOL,
So when did you first get your first customer?
So the business evolved over certainly the first 9 months that I was working, from this horrible spammy get paid to click on banners and things like that, into this idea of a directory where you could find free things on the internet. So I'd stumbled across a forum with a few other people who were doing this, and they'd started off too in the get paid to surf, get paid to click on banners, get paid to read your emails. But then there was this firm called Tombola. They're still going today. They're a massive gaming company these days. But Tombola were basically an online prize draw. So they would promote competitions, and it was a natural in to say, get paid to enter competitions. And for everyone that I referred to Tombola, I think I got paid 25p or 50p, something like that. It wasn't a huge amount, but that was just for a free lead. Just give me your email address. Happy days. I'll get 50p. So I probably got my first customers through Tombola probably after about 4 months, 5 months. And I literally, we are talking one person. It was probably me, followed by my mum and my sister and my wife. But my first real customer, probably 4 or 5 months in, for that one person, that 150p. It took a long time to get this business off the ground. After 9 months of running this business part-time alongside the day job, I received my very first check from the network that worked with this company. It was for £13.51.
Money's money.
Yeah, but 9 months work of a couple of hours a day, full-time at weekends. Yeah, it wasn't a great return on investment, let's say that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great story of sticking with it. And the things you have to go through in the beginning to start learning your trade. So once you got that first check in, were you off on the races? Was the next one 10 grand?
It was. I felt I was up at the races, because that for me was the tipping point whereby I thought, that idea when I saw that Brent Hoberman had registered goinggoing.com, that was a moment that I felt, you're on the right path here, John. Getting a check for some money that was generated through something I did, not being paid for my hourly rate, but just I've created £13.51 worth of value. That was another sign that you are on the right paths, but you're making a lot of mistakes. So let's, instead of £13.51 for 9 months work, let's see if we can earn £13.51 for 1 month's work. And that's probably where it did go. I went to suddenly earning £1 or £2 a week for a month or two. And it really did snowball. And again, I can't help but credit, I have been incredibly lucky, and I was in the right place at the right time. The rise of internet marketing in the early 2000s, I happened to have spent my learning curve just before that wave really took off. So April 2001, I get my first check for £13.51. By July or August, I'm earning £300 a month, which is a huge scale up from where it was. I go part-time at the day job in September, and suddenly those 2 days a week that I'm not working the day job and I'm now devoting entirely to my business, suddenly I'm earning £1,500 a month, and that's the magic number because that's more than I need from the day job. So I actually quit the day job in November of that year. So I do 2 months part-time, and I'm like, right, it's costing me money to go to work. I'm quitting. And literally I've got, right, apologies to the audio listeners of this podcast, but on my desk I have a little ornament, and it's a little calendar. It's a cube calendar, and it is set to Monday, the 31st of December. And that is Monday, the 31st of December, 2001. And that is the last day I had a real job. That is the day that I wheel spun out of the civil service car park. And 23 years later, I've still got that reminder on my desk not to mess it up. Because if I do, that's where I'm heading again. I'm heading back to a job I hated and that I never want to return to ever again.
It's a great way of also looking how far you've come as well, isn't it?
Good.
You can look because you can remember often where you were when you were leaving that job and the person you've essentially become. Now, I just wanted to find out a little bit more about, so going into business, is, a lot of people say just do it, which I get. But I think I've done it, you've done it. The best way I think you can do it is by doing it alongside a full-time job, finding what works, starting to build it up, and then once you know you've got something, losing the day job and moving into it. Because otherwise the risk is just too big, and there's too much pressure.
Yeah, it gives you that safety net, doesn't it? That the wages are covered, and you're building your business for you and what you want in life without too much financial pressure, because otherwise you start doing things for the money. And I don't think that's a good way to start any business. A lot of entrepreneurs, and I mentioned earlier, I fell into that trap of just chasing more money. But if I'd started my business with the real financial pressure of, I have no safety net, I have no cash reserves. When I left the civil service, I had 6 months civil service salary in the bank as a reserve if this internet thing doesn't work out. My sister unfortunately died just as I was leaving the civil service.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the last conversations I had with Linda was, are you sure you're doing the right thing? You're giving up a nice, safe, secure job here. This internet thing might not last. And, I just remember having that conversation and thinking, yeah, what if it doesn't? What if this doesn't? And, even the last day at work, everyone was like, well, I hope it works out for you. But if it doesn't, see you in 6 months. And it was very much, well, okay.
I think that's a very British attitude, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
If it was America, it would be more, it's going to work out. You got this. Yeah. But yeah, over here it's like,
yeah, you'll be back.
I don't think it's going to really work out. We'll see you in 6 months. We'll keep your chair warm for you.
Exactly.
So first of Jan 2022, obviously, like you said, you're no longer in the civil service. How does things escalate from there?
Very, very quickly. Because now, I remember the impact that it had when I was able to drop 2 days a week at the day job and focus on the business. Suddenly, I'm now full-time on the business. And again, if you place it there, beginning of 2002, Google is now starting to come along. And all of a sudden, guess who knows how Google works? I can have an idea on the Monday, buy a domain name, cheaper than I used to now that I was probably paying 15 quid a year back then. I can get a horrible looking one-page wonder website up that same day. And by Tuesday, I'm number one on Google for almost any term I want. And I'm earning money. I'm doing a lot of affiliate marketing, but I'm just having ideas. I'm gaming Google. I think, pretty sure it was either 2002 or might have been 2003. I think it's 2003. Google Ads launch in the UK, or AdWords as it was called back then. And suddenly I'm able to buy traffic that I know is worth 20p a click. And I'm buying it for half of 1 pence per click. I'm making 40 times my money and I get paid 2-3 months later. So in terms of how did it scale up? Yeah, I went from probably earning 1,500 quid a month in January 2002 to doing 100k certainly by the middle of 2003. I'm doing 100k a year.
Wow.
And it was just phenomenal. But I was also surrounded now by people who were doing even better than that. So I would head up to London and I'd have a meeting with the guys and they'd say, right, yeah, so Paul's doing 100k a month. Adrian's doing 250k a month. It's like, sorry, a month, did you say? It's like, yeah. Well, yeah, because it's really easy. And this internet game is easy. You just do this, and you make 100k a month. It's really simple. And just that, I got caught up in that. So suddenly, over 18 months, I had gone from, if I can earn 1,500 quid a month without all the horrible crap that I have to put up with working for someone else, and I've got freedom and I've got time that I can walk the dogs during the day and I can go to the gym and I've earned 1,500 quid a month, I'm happy, up to I'm already earning 100k a year, but I need more because that guy over there is earning more money than me. And it really became this huge willy waving competition that I got sucked up in, because every time I would go, and I'm blaming London, it's not your fault, London, really, but every time I went to London, that's where all the events happened. That's where everyone congregated, and suddenly all the willies came out, and it was, how much are you earning then? How much do you get paid by this company? Oh, how many staff have you got? How big are your offices? So I went from, I've got a really, really nice lifestyle business to, right, and I went from me in my office in the start of 2003 to by the end of 2004, I had 15 people working for me in 2 offices.
Wow. That is a scale up.
It is, and a horrible scale up. This is what led to me sitting in that dermatologist's office at the hospital with the nervous breakdown was, are you under any stress? Yes, I've got 15 members of staff.
So what once you've been in the hospital, what happens? Did you have to take a break? Did you start, thinking about doing business differently? What kind of transpired?
Yeah, I abdicated my business.
Okay.
It's one of those things though, with hindsight, I know what I should have done. And what I should have done is said to all those 15 people, I'm very, very sorry. I've made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. We're closing down the offices. You can all go and find new employment. You've only been here a couple of months anyway. I'm going back to my little office. I'm going back to my comfort zone. I'm going back to knowing what I do. I'm going back to a nice lifestyle business where I can earn 100 grand a year in my bedroom. That's not an OnlyFans channel, by the way. I'm just saying, just make that very clear, right?
Yeah, this is before then.
Yeah, exactly. I
got
might have
one of
gone
those
down that
now,
road.
though.
You never know. I'll tell you what, we would have explored that opportunity. There were very few sectors we didn't look at back in the day. But what I did do instead was I went in the office and I said to Jason and Mark, my management team, I can't do this. You guys run the business. And I signed over 49% of my business to them for free. And I went, you have half my business. I can't do this. I'm retiring. So I was 27 years old and I retired from the industry. I walked away from the business, said, look, you run the business. I'm just going to go and just chill and sit in my office. And I played with some network marketing things and I did a little bit of consultancy. And I got very, very bored. But suddenly all the rashes cleared up. The weight dropped off me. I was going to say the hair stopped falling out, but it didn't. But yeah, I got my lifestyle back, but at the
Yeah.
expense of the business. And ultimately the business ended up failing anyway. 12 months later, kind of had a board meeting, and it was, well, we've run out of money. There is no money left. And so I had to go back in, at which point, guess what I did? I said, right, we're closing down the offices. I'm making half of the staff redundant. We now need to pay redundancy pay as well, but this is what needs to happen. We're closing down. We're sort of severely restricting what we do. We're closing down several of our products, several of our services, and I'm going back to working from home. Jason, you can work from home. Stuart, you can work from home. We're having, and I coined this phrase a few years later, which was the ambitious lifestyle business. We're going back to being a lifestyle business, but I don't want to abandon that ambition. I've still got drive. I've still got hunger. I still want to grow things. I still want to be successful. I do not want, and it was Dragon's Den at the time. I'm going to predominantly blame Peter Jones because it was him. He would always look down his nose at lifestyle businesses. Oh, this isn't a real business. What he meant was it's not a business I could invest in and scale.
Scalable.
Yeah, exactly. But the language he used was, this isn't a real business. So I had that at the back of my mind. But if I'm just settling for a lifestyle business, me pottering around in my office at home in my late 20s, that really hurt because I have got ambition. So I just said, well, let's attach the word ambitious to it. Let's say we run an ambitious lifestyle business. We want this business to fuel and pay for a very, very nice lifestyle. So I'm not content to just make cupcakes in my kitchen. Apologies to anyone who makes cupcakes in their kitchen. I do love a good cupcake, but I do want to grow this business, but not at the expense of my health, not at the expense of my family, not at the expense of my mental health, my quality time. That's what comes first. It's the lifestyle first. And this is why I talk about the pendulum. So often we go too far down one end of the pendulum. I went too far down the ambition end of the pendulum. I need to earn £1 million a year. Why? Well, because it's nice, isn't it? It's that magic number. It's again, Dragon's Den. What was the first valuation out of everyone's mouth? How much are you looking for this business? 100,000 for 10% of the business. So you value it at, £1 million every time.
It's that signature number.
It is. It's just that
I'm going to build £1 million business.
Yeah. Is it, for me, growing up in the 80s, is it Derek Trotter's fault? Because this time next year, Rodney, we'll be millionaires.
Yeah. the yuppie era, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And it was, yeah. I was born in 77. So those were my most influential years. That's when I was at my most impressionable, was during the 80s. It was Maggie Thatcher, Ronald Reagan. It was big shoulder pads. It was Wall Street. Yeah. It was the yuppies. It was Derek Trotter becoming a millionaire. And what happened when Derek became a millionaire, by the way, was he wasn't happy. And he still wanted to just do a deal.
Billionaire.
The thrill of it. Yeah, well, yeah, but exactly. But he wanted to become a billionaire, then ended up losing everything and becoming truly happy, living the lifestyle he wanted, wheeling and dealing. For him, it wasn't about being a millionaire. It was about wheeling and dealing to chase the millionaire lifestyle. And I know I got that wrong because I wrote in Big Ideas for Small Businesses about exactly this. The difference between wanting to be a millionaire and living like a millionaire. And it's this idea you've got, if I say to you, dear listener, that, what does the word millionaire immediately conjure up for you? What if you are now a millionaire, what does that look like? For me, back in the day when I was chasing that, that meant stepping off a private plane, wearing a sharp suit, getting into my chauffeur-driven car of some description, doing high-powered deals on my way to some high-powered meeting. I'm probably on my way to meet the Prime Minister.
That is exactly what the Apprentice opener is, though, isn't it?
It is the opening credits of The Apprentice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again,
they've nailed the stereotypes.
Yes, they have. That's exactly what I wanted because, again, Lord Sugar was my inspiration. He was what I was chasing. And that the opening credits of The Apprentice, That's what being a millionaire means to me. And it was, I famously said, like, I was sat in an MOT garage waiting for my car to be done. My first son, who's now 15, was sat at home. So a 3-month-old baby at home. I absolutely adore this child. And children have a wonderful way of just changing everything for you. I'm sat in this MOT garage and I'm reading Alan Sugar's autobiography, What You See Is What You Get. And I'm building Amstrad at this time. I'm reading about Sir Alan's sort of market stall back in the 70s. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is what I'm wheeling and dealing, I'm growing, I'm scaling up, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the next host of The Apprentice. When Sir Alan calls it, Sir Alan, that shows you, that dates it, doesn't it? When Lord Sugar retires, I'll be there ready to take over. And then suddenly, I read one line in that book. Oh, I never really saw my kids much when they were growing up. And I went, yeah, I don't want that. That's not the business I want. I'm emulating Sir Alan. And if I continue to emulate him, I'm not going to see my kids. And that's not the lifestyle I want. And suddenly the millionaire image became, I'm going to be the dad who's at every sports day. I'm going to be at every assembly. If my kid says to me at 2:00 in the afternoon, Dad, can we play Lego? I'm just going to down tools and say yes. That's what being a millionaire suddenly meant to me. It's like, okay, I don't need to own all these things. I don't need the high-powered deals. I need the freedom. I've still got ambition, remember. I've still got that ambition side of the equation to say, okay, I need to earn good money here, because if I'm going to slack off at 2:00 to play Lego, if I'm going to not start work until 10:30 in the morning because I've got an assembly to attend, if I'm not going to work next Tuesday because it's sports day, I need to earn good, really good money when I do work. So I've got a huge ambition, but I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to get in, I'm going to earn my money, and I'm going to know, crucially, how much is enough. I'm going to know where to stop, because when we start businesses, we are a little bit desperate. So we say yes to everything. Someone says, can you do this? You go, yeah, of course I can. Well, I haven't told you what it is yet. Yeah, but we'll figure that out later. We'll find a way. Yeah, I think it was Branson who said, say yes now, find out how to do it later. And that is how we all start our businesses, is yes, I'll do this. Yes, of course we can add a new product line. Let me just Google how that works. Yes, I can do more work. Yes, I can work weekends. Yeah, of course I'll stay late tonight. I need the business. I need more money. I need to keep every customer happy. But as you become a little bit more established, we should become a little bit more selective. We should just become a little bit more. There's a book on the shelf behind me here. I don't know if you can see it there. It's a yellow cover. Derek Sivers' book, Hell Yeah or No. And eventually we should get to the stage whereby if the things we're considering are not a absolutely hell yeah, I want to do this, it should be a no. And we need to evolve and get to that over a period of time.
Let's go on to the other businesses that you've started. So you mentioned previously in the podcast that you started or been involved with around 60 businesses. Can you tell us about some of those and some of the successes and some of the maybe ones that didn't work?
Yeah, definitely. So the first major one was that freebie directory, this idea of, where can I get a free sachet of shampoo, so a tin of cat food, a washing up tablet, that sort of thing. That was the first major success. So I ran that business for about 7 years, and that was eventually sold to a PLC back in 2007. And that was when I became my most Richard Branson. I'm going to have multiple businesses. And I started a bingo business and a competitions website, and one that started reviewing electrical appliances. So if you were searching for the model number of a TV, guess what? We'd rank on Google for that model number. Again, very early days, we'd actually review the TV for you. We'd do some price comparison things. None of those really took off, but they all led to something. So a lot of the stuff we were doing around the price comparison stuff the shopping directory led to an affiliate tool that we created, which was basically content unit. So if you searched for, again, let's say that model of TV, we made it very easy for you to have a price comparison widget to say, here's how much Comet is selling it for. That dates it, doesn't it? Currys, PC World, Amazon, I don't know, name your other electrical retailers. Dixon's, yeah, it would have been about then, yeah. Not quite Rumbelows, not that far back. But it was across multiple affiliate networks. So each affiliate network had their own content unit, but no one else did it multi-network. We were the first people to do that, and we made it very, very simple. That it was literally, you just typed in a search, we returned a search keyword. It was basically done with very, very, very large databases. But that was our next big success. That grew phenomenally from, probably 2008 up to 2012. And we had a golden period, I would say, between 2008 and probably 2012, 2013, where it was another one of those periods where everything I did just seemed to really, really work very well. And we went on a bit of an acquisition spree. So we went buying established businesses, improving them, because we knew how to do SEO. We knew about conversion rate optimization. We knew Google ads. Facebook ads was just starting to get profitable at the time. So we knew a little bit about that. So we ended up owning a mobile phone insurance company, a breakdown cover website. What else did we buy? Serviced office accommodation in London, nationwide directory of florists, nationwide directory of sex toy shops. That was an interesting one. I told you we'd go into any sector. What else did we do? Holidays. Yeah, lots of holidays. Travel website based in hotels in the Algarve, private villas throughout Europe. There is nothing that we wouldn't turn our hand to.
Got 3 final questions for you, John. First of all, what is the best business advice you've ever received?
Ooh, I think focus on one thing. It was advice that was given to me that I ignored. And I said I always wanted to be Richard Branson, but knowing now how important that has been, just focusing on one thing, abandoning being Richard Branson and having multiple businesses in multiple sectors doing multiple things to, I just do marketing for one business, was instrumental in my success, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can hold Richard Branson up as the reason why they tried to get into multiple industries.
Yeah, he is the poster boy of British entrepreneurship, with good reason. He's also the reason that I have fun and enjoy running a business and don't need to do things the cookie cutter way that established businesses have always done it. But he's also got a lot to answer for, because who else says I'm going to own a record company and an airline and a mobile phone company and sell wine and do makeup and have a music festival and everything else that he's done?
Yeah, he's got a lot to answer for. What advice would you give to someone looking to start a business in 2024?
Remember the problem that you're solving. So all of business is problem solving. You are solving a problem for someone else that creates value so that they want to pay you for that. So often I see people go into businesses, again, we talked about this earlier on the pod, because they can earn money doing it. I started my business to earn money. I started my business to replace the income from my day job. And because of that, I was lacking a purpose. I was lacking direction. I was lacking fulfillment that it never made me happy. Now I help people on a daily basis. I make a difference in people's lives. I help them have a better lifestyle. I help them have a better business. And that lights me up. So find that area. Jim Collins calls it the hedgehog principle, the interlocking 3 circles, the Venn diagram, whereby you are really good at what you do. You are really passionate about what you do. And yes, you can earn good money doing it, but don't settle for a business that gives you 2 out of 3. You have to have all 3. It's no problem finding out you haven't got all 3 in that first business, but don't stay in that business. Move on to one that you have got that sweet spot, that hedgehog concept.
That's a great answer. What books, obviously apart from your own as well, which are listed in the show notes, would you recommend that someone that's either looking to start a business or has recently started a business read?
Oh, okay. So I've written a blog post with my top 100 business books. I've got probably a couple of hundred on the shelf behind me there. And I've always got that kind of recency bias of, well, what's the most recent book I've read? So someone who's recently started their business, I would. It depends what you need. I'm not allowed to recommend my own books. Is that the rule? Damn.
You can recommend your own.
I mean, I wrote Big Ideas for Small Businesses as the book I wish I'd read when I was at the civil service. If I'd read that book then at the start of my journey, I wouldn't have made some of the mistakes I did in those early years. So I think if I can recommend that, but I will recommend my own book, but I will give you a few others as well. So I mentioned the greatest advice for me was focusing on one thing. On that blog post, my top 100 books, my number one book is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. That book was game-changing for me. It's this idea of just removing the bottleneck, finding out what the lead domino is, the one thing that when you do this one thing, everything else becomes either easier or unnecessary. It was so impactful for me. It's been impactful for many, many others. It is cover out on my bookshelf. Again, those on the video will see me pointing to it, cover out on my shelf. I would definitely look at The One Thing. If you're interested in just, lots of people recommend, what's the Napoleon Hill book called? Think and Grow Rich. So
I've not read that.
So that's like early 1900s. Napoleon Hill just gets together like Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, all the most successful entrepreneurs of their time, gets them all together and says, right, how have you all figured this out? And he just kind of creates a playbook for business success in the early 1900s. I think there's a book that does similar, but for the 21st century. And that book is Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. So Tim Ferriss, obviously podcaster, interviewed several hundred people, then created a book where every single podcast episode is just broken down in like 2 pages. So you can dive in and see what Arnold Schwarzenegger thinks. Then you can go on and see what Maria Sharapova has to say. And all of this applies hopefully to your business. But yeah, those would be the books I would start with.
Thanks to John Lamerton for coming on the podcast today. For those that were watching at the beginning, you may not believe, but we had a series of power cuts throughout the show. So unfortunately, we were unable to get a good sign-off from him. But to find out more about John, you can find him on LinkedIn or visit bigidea.co.uk and take a look at his 1% Club. Or you can check out his LinkedIn page, or he's got 4 books on Amazon. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you can do one thing for me, and like, follow or subscribe to this channel on your podcast listening app. It enables us to grow the show. Thank you.